it's easy to come up with excuses of why not to do this, why not to do that, why not to try this. But if you do that, your life is just going to be kind of hard and, to be honest, pretty sucky. And so do the hard things every once in a while. You don't need to all the time because obviously I don't like doing hard things all the time. Your life will be better, and just don't give yourself excuses. So before middle school, I was able to walk with the braces and walker, but I've been disabled my whole life.
And I would honestly imagine that seeing everybody else walk around, it would create this kind of this like stigma, I would say.
And yeah, it started out of frustration and that mental health side of being frustrated and a little bit depressed, but mainly frustrated on my end. I'll admit that my disappointment and everything comes out in frustration, and that's how I channel it.
So similar to you, but a little bit different.
It was titled No Excuses, and by Kyle Maynard, and he's a man now who was born without arms and legs, and he played football, wrestled as a kid, and then now has climbed like Mount Kilimanjaro, Mount McKinley, all the different mountains in the world, and just does absolutely amazing things. And so I have always kind of had that no excuses mantra.
Good morning. This recording is being done on November 6th. I have the privilege of speaking to Mitch Bohn from Access Billings. It is a nonprofit that he started up to help out with enabling people with disabilities to be able to pretty much get and utilize Billings the same exact way that everybody else is able to amputate. And I had the pleasure of watching him doing a TEDx Billings. He spoke very, very well. It was uh it was something that I really wanted to reach out to him. Very, very personable person. How you doing, Mitch?
I'm doing really good, Will. Thanks so much for having me on, and thanks for that great intro and talking me up so much.
Dude, it was like I saw you and I saw you out there and I'm like, wow, this is something that I don't always think about. I don't always think about how do I navigate my world. The worst that I had to amputate before on my own was when I was put my foot in a boot, and trying to drive with left footed is not fun. So that's the worst my disability is. And you're an individual who's been wheelchair bound for, was it your whole life?
Most of my life. So before middle school, I was able to walk with the braces and walker, but I've been disabled my whole life.
And I would honestly imagine that seeing everybody else walk around, it would create this kind of this like stigma, I would say.
A little bit, and one thing that I guess dealt with growing up, especially is in Montana with us being so rural and there not being a whole lot of young people in wheelchairs. Um, I was the only one growing up, even in Billings, for my grade. Now there were others before or after me that were in a wheelchair, but not in special education. And so I think in Montana, that is a little bit special and other rural states because we have a lot of people that are disabled in our school systems, but for the most part, they are in special education. And so there's that. I don't know if it's disconnect or what it is with those like myself that were not in special education.
So did you obviously you said like you were the only one that was in special education being wheelchair bound. How was that like relating to your other classmates?
So it was difficult. I always say I was popular from 8 to 3. Um, if you saw me during school, I was always talking to people and kind of inserting myself into conversations and with people. So I never had a problem during school interacting with my peers. But after school and then like any football games or basketball games or anything like that that I wanted to go to, excuse me, it was pretty rare for me to sit with other kids my age. So what I ended up doing was either sitting with my parents or my younger brother, who I often would have tag along with me.
It's I grew up in Long Island, New York, and we honestly per capita didn't have that many people that were wheelchair bound or really needing like a walker or crutches. To be honest, like, I didn't take notice of it when I was a kid,
Mhm.
and when I was a kid, I was just more about playing sports, chasing around, and we forget about the other individuals that are not able to do the same activities as us.
Right. Right. It's even like, so I went to West High, and again, this was 10 years ago. I believe they've changed it since then. But I was a choir kid, and so in the choir room there was 4 steps down to the main area, and I had to have like 3 or 4 kids lift me down every day to get to that first row. Um, then when it came concert time, and I know they've changed this because I've been to the auditorium since then, I would have to go outside to get backstage. And for anybody that's done any sort of school concerts, one of those is always in December. And so you are hoping, 1, that it's not currently snowing when you have that concert, and 2, if it snowed that day, you're hoping that the walkway to that door was shoveled. Um, and so it was always kind of a gamble, at that point, you know? Now, like I said, West High has done renovations and made it better, but, back when I was going to school, it was not that.
It's first off, that's rough. Second off, it's it sucks because it's like, do you want to participate in these sports or choir or like say activities, not sports, but activities, and knowing that there's a chance that depending on how bad it is, you might not even be able to participate while everybody else does.
Right. Well, and the other thing too, so let's take it back to sports. So, for those that have been to Dallas, the I'm gonna get it wrong because 'cause I'm terrible with directions. The east side is where the student section is. Well, the west side is where the handicap seating is, and so I either had to go through gravel and, um, try to find a spot that I could somewhat sit in by the student section, or I was on the other side of the stadium completely away from the student section as a
Hmm.
student, and so it just was not conducive to being a part of the student body while also being a disabled part of the student body. So,
It's just a
that was,
constant reminder.
yeah, exactly.
And like I shared with you before we jumped on, is my mission is about promoting men's mental health. And part of an area that we neglect is the things about how ableism or being ableistic to be able to move around or ambutate on your own power, how that creates these other mental health issues and
Mhm.
how it creates a stuck point. Like not being part of the student body and while being part of the student body, being part of choir, but praying that you're able to be part of choir. It's hard, man.
It is, and, it hasn't. I'd love to say that in adulthood it's gotten better, um, but it hasn't. Whenever I go out with friends or they ask me to do something, I always have to ask, "Is a place Mitch friendly?" And, that has come from going to places blindly, not knowing, and then being disappointed that either I can't get in at all, because there are a couple places like that. That's pretty few and far between, but, there are a few places, and then if I can get in, is every single table high top, which, if you can imagine, for somebody in a wheelchair, um, or any really sort of disability where their legs are not 100% working, those are not the best. There are some disabilities where they're okay, but either way, they are not the best. And so there have been multiple times where I've stayed at places where the table is at my head height or above, and it's awkward. Um, and that is probably why Access Billing started, to be honest with you. And yeah, it started out of frustration and that mental health side of being frustrated and a little bit depressed, but mainly frustrated on my end. I'll admit that my disappointment and everything comes out in frustration, and that's how I channel it.
So, similar to you, but a little bit different. The reason I started up this podcast, and I've released 38 episodes up to this point. I have probably about 10 or more I have to edit right now. And the reason that I'm actually started this up, I lost numerous friends to suicide and to addiction. And I work for the VA currently as a peer specialist. I'm going to start graduate school in January.
That's amazing.
Yep. I was one of those people that was very hopeless with PTSD. The Marine Corps, mentally, some of the stuff that I experienced, I didn't know how to process. I didn't know how to communicate, didn't know how to articulate. The emotional wheel, I used to scoff at, and I'd be like, "Oh,
Mhm.
anger, there we go." And not understanding the whole wheel has so many of us were able to even talk about, like you said, frustration. Like, frustration, like, man, I feel sad, I feel alone, I feel helpless. Like, that's me just spitballing out the ideas and how frustration can come about.
Yeah.
And it's, then trying to articulate this to a person that has never, I don't say, because the saying is to walk a mile in your shoes. A person that has had to be alone for quite a bit of their life being around people.
Yeah. Yeah, and, also, I wanna touch on because you mentioned the veteran community and everything, and these numbers are without the veteran community. There is 10% of our population in Billings that has a disability of some kind, and then you add in 25% of our population is elderly, so that's over 65, and then you add in that we have one of the highest veteran populations in the country. So you think about it with the accessibility piece of everything, whether that be for PTSD, for physical disabilities, for whatever the disability, um, it's very needed in Billings because of all of those different pockets of people that either could or do have some sort of disability. And so that's another reason why I and my team have started the or the not the podcast, God, the nonprofit is to help all different pockets of people that have the need.
Yeah, it's we in living in Montana, we're, about a little bit more than 10% of our populations are veterans. And if I remember correctly, I haven't looked at the numbers this year or currently this year, but we either rank 1, 2, or 3 in the highest rates of suicide with Wyoming and Alaska, and we have very strong similarities between the 3 of us.
Mhm.
And that being said, it's it sucks because we have the mentality of pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And even the people that are pulling themselves up by the bootstraps, they are getting farmed out of their places by getting bought out. You have people that are losing their homes to homesteading. You have a lot of other issues that are happening. And when we think about, or I'll tell you from one of my classes I took was, I'm not trying to give you a hand out. I'm trying to give you a hand up so you could be able to compete at the same level that we're competing. And it hurts because I didn't realize this until one of the veterans I got a chance to work with had to miss classes because an elevator was not able to go to the floor that they needed to. The teacher provided them with accommodation, but
Mhm.
you're missing out.
Let me guess, was it the top floor of McMullen Hall?
It was over in US, MSU Northern.
Oh, in Northern. Okay, I just know, in at MSUB, there is one floor that I don't know if it's classes anymore, but there used to be classes, and the elevator didn't go up to the floor. I didn't realize
And
that over at Northern.
yep, Northern right now actually has some issues. It it just it really has been touching to me because When I used to think about mental health, I used to think about depression, anxiety, PTSD. That was like the 3 that I paid attention to. But I didn't realize how talking, hearing, moving, everything else has to deal with it.
100%. I mean, I can tell you from my experience, again, going back to winter, because that's usually when I dip a little bit, is when I'm not able to get out and when I am stuck in my house for the most part. Um, I definitely feel that trap kind of depressive state a little bit. Just because you do feel so trapped, and it's just by nature of weather. And I know that that's part of it with our state too, is because we're so isolated, because we do have 4 to 5 months where the weather is so desolate, especially in our rural areas. Um, I think that adds to it as well.
You're spot on with that, and I appreciate that. So, kinda wanna get into, the nonprofit that you started with some other people. Is Have you noticed any of the traction, or have you noticed any of the benefits or awareness to other people?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So we started it in May is when we became incorporated. And so what we started doing was, thankfully that was lining up with all the festival season here in Billings. So we went to Pride Festival in June, we went to Strawberry Festival, we went to Harvest Festival, and a couple of other smaller ones that weren't as big. And what we found with every single one of those was we were coming back with 2 to 3 projects that people said, "Hey, this needs to be done. We'd like to have this done in our community." Or actually at Harvest Fest, we had a business owner come up to us and say, "Hey, I own this building. Can you come look at it?" It was the Jake's building downtown. And so what we're seeing is that. And then also we're just seeing people that maybe don't have suggestions of places. They are just saying, "Thank you so much for doing this," because it is very needed in our community. And so just to see that in the 5, 6 months that we've been a nonprofit has been, I think, eye-opening to me, because I didn't realize just how wanted it was in our community. Um, because we do have a lot of different nonprofits and different for-profit businesses that help the individuals with a disability either work better in their home or go out with people. For socialization and things like that. But what we don't have, and this is where we come in, is we don't have any nonprofits that are saying, "Hey, can you get in that business? Can you navigate that business?" And that's where we're wanting to come in with those businesses and help make Billings completely accessible, so that the "is this Mitch friendly or is this handicap accessible" is not a thing anymore.
Oh, first off, it might have started off just by you needing it. There's other people that need it that didn't know how to actually voice it correctly. And first off, kudos. Second off, I've seen the way that Billings is rising, and I see how well Billings is changing. And since Billings is forever growing right now, it's interesting. It's going to grow in such a way, and it will be able to attract other people that would not normally be coming here based off of certain disabilities or certain problems. And
Exactly.
how did you what what changed in your life that created you to become wheelchair bound?
So really, Will, to be honest, what changed in my life is middle school. I didn't want to have special treatment and get extra time to go in between classes. Um and also Will James has like 600 kids, 500, 600 kids. And so I just made the decision. I was like, "You know what? I don't want to have to take 10, 15 minutes between classes, miss out on class time, and then get even further behind." And I just made the decision that a wheelchair was gonna be an easier route for me, and, it honestly has been way more freedom because when I stopped walking, it took me a while to get anywhere, where now I can zip around anywhere.
Yeah, it's I guess I have not really thought about it like that of zipping around. Now they have the motorized. When you were growing up, you guys probably only had the push and pull
I
backwards.
Yeah, so I just got a, I call it a hybrid. It has a motor on it, but it is a manual chair still. So I just got that this year, actually. Thank you to National Seating and Mobility here in Billings. They're awesome. But I got that because I had 3 bouts of shoulder and elbow tendonitis in 2 years. Yeah, yeah. So my shoulders and elbows were telling me you got to stop, and so again, because of those, I was limiting where I was going, or when I was going places, I was having people push me. And for me, that's just never been my style. I've always wanted to do things as independently as possible. And so I talked to them and I was like, hey, I know I'm not 5 years away, or I'm not 5 years since my last chair, which is how often you can get them through insurance. But I'm having these issues with my shoulders and elbows. Can we try to expedite it to where I can get some sort of a power chair and alleviate the pressure on my shoulders and elbows? And so they did. I originally went in thinking I was going to get a full on power chair, but then with my life, I still drive. And so I wanted to keep that freedom. And I do occasionally travel with my family. And so I wanted to keep that freedom as well. And with a super heavy power chair, that's not really obtainable. And so we kind of met in the middle with a manual chair that has a motor, which whoever came up with that technology is amazing.
So, like, is it almost like a Milwaukee type of style where you just slap a battery in it and then you're good to go? Or is it like a natural lithium battery?
So it's a lithium battery, and I charge it every other day, every third day, something like that. And then it connects to the axles of the wheel, and then it controls the wheels.
So is it, and it's gonna sound silly, but is it always engaged with the wheels, or is it like you have to actually press like move a lever to actually connect it to the wheels?
So no, it's always connected to the wheels, unless I take it off. So it can come off, but I have to go down there and I have to press a button and undo it. But most of the time, it's on my wheels. And then what I do to turn it on and off is I just have a little knob next to my seat, and I just press that in and out to turn it on and off. And if it's off, it just works as if it's a bike wheel, for lack of better words, and it's just there. Um, but if it's on, then it will do the pushing for me.
Yeah, because the reason I was asking was like sometimes what they'll have is those things will be engaged, and then it causes it to really stunt the wheel from being mechanically pushed, and it needs to be pretty much like have the electric be able to force it. That's why I was curious.
Yeah, no. So this one, if I have the mechanism off, I
Mhm.
can still push my chair fine.
Okay, cool. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. And so, like, um, the one thing about it is it doesn't go backwards. So if I ever need to back up, I do need to manually back it up. Um, and so no, it doesn't interfere with the wheel at all to where I am able to do that freely, and it works fine. It doesn't interfere with the wheel.
Has and alright, I won't be asking more silly these questions anymore, but, um, how how have you actually been able to you seem like you're so positive. How were you able to bounce back through some of your mental struggles with this what was actually been happening?
Yeah, so that's 100% my family. I have a really great family system with my mom, dad, and brother. And then, excuse me. Another thing too that's really helped me is my younger brother, who is my best friend. He has a really good group of friends that know that Mitch is more than likely going to be included in a lot of the things that we do. And so I go out with them to, they go to back nine a lot. They're into golf. So I'll go with them and hang out, and we play PlayStation together every night. So I would accredit it to my family, but then also my brother, who has opened up his friend group to me and told his friends, "Hey, Mitch is going to be a friend of ours too." And that's really cool because I'm 30 and my brother's friends are all 22, 23. So there is that age gap there, but they've all been really awesome with me.
I'm glad to hear that. That's really cool to have. My
Yeah.
brother, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say too, another thing that really opened up my world, and I don't know how much you know about my background, but I interned with Leif Wellhaven on his show a couple years ago.
Okay.
And so that really opened up a lot of doors for friendships as well, and it's helped me go out and expand more and actually kind of help fuel my want to do more advocacy than what I already was. So, you know, kind of these last few years have been really good on the friendship side of things to where I do not have those bouts of being down anymore, which has been awesome. So, all of those things kind of mixed together have helped me.
Leif knows everybody in Billings.
That helps a lot. Yeah,
Yeah, I know he was part of the Breakfast Club for a while, and he was doing a lot of other nonprofit work. He also has a radio show. I've seen him a few times. Really, I've never had a chance to really hang out with him. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that the family and the support system was able to really help you and motivate you to keep going.
100%. And, before she passed away, my grandma was one of my best friends as well. And I would talk to her at least weekly once we moved away from Great Falls where she was at, um, if not more. And so when she was alive, she was a big support system for me too. I could do no wrong in her eyes. So
Dude, I'm actually really happy to hear that. It's something that we don't really look at too much. But yeah, it's and with the Access Billings, the nonprofit, do you feel like you might expand this to other bigger but smaller other cities here in Montana?
So you're getting way ahead of us here, Will. That is my like grand plan. Yeah, I would love to get more of a hold on Billings and get some more projects under our belt and some more major projects under our belt, especially right now we're doing some lower hanging fruit that don't cost us as much. And so yes, that is the end goal is to, maybe have like access Bozeman, access Great Falls, access Helena, Missoula, wherever else. Yeah, that is the end goal.
And with your nonprofit, is it only here in Montana, or could it actually bleed into, like, say, Sheridan or Cody?
I don't see why it couldn't. Um, yeah, I don't see why it couldn't. What I'd probably do at that point if it got to that big a point, and even if it got outside of, I don't know what we'd do with it, honestly. But it is something that could bleed outside of Montana, most definitely. To Wyoming, Idaho, North Dakota, South Dakota, and I think of those states in particular because they are rural like ours, and have more areas that maybe need the help um, than even like a Washington or Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota, they have a different feel that's more condensed than what we have. Same thing with Washington. Oregon has the eastern side of Oregon, even though that they're talking about possibly moving over to Idaho. I don't know if you heard about that. They're talking
I
about
did.
actually greater Idaho. There's like
Yeah.
13 counties and then 15 needs to do it. Um, yeah, there's a lot of things that we don't look at, and we try to be penny rich, but it's extremely dollar poor at the back end, where we're not investing money into the communities to be able to make it, I'm gonna use you, Mitch friendly. And
Yeah. Well, it's even like I went to the pub station the other night for an event, and the pub station's super handicap accessible. One, but two, when I was outside of there, I was looking at the sidewalks, and they were all full of cracks. And for somebody that's in a wheelchair, walker, cane, crutches, what have you, those cracks in the sidewalk are a fall hazard. And so in Billings, that is a big thing that I've noticed all around town, not just downtown, but especially downtown. Um, we just don't do upkeep with our sidewalks, and that's a detriment to our disabled community and our veteran community and elderly and all those things that I mentioned before. And we just don't do the um upkeep.
Well, to be fair, we have a lot of zombie buildings over here as well, and I would love to see them be brought back to life, and not just in a bar scene, but actually in a place where people are able to either congregate, work, or do something.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I've only lived in Billings for the last 4 years, kind of started to really love this place. This is a place that I called home after, I did a post-hospitalization for mental health. I did 13 weeks, and the potential that Billings has is so much. Even though we have a lot of homeless, and to me, I'm like, that's a potential to help them find work, lower blue collar jobs. How do we help repurpose a lot of these areas? And instead of letting things just die off and become more and more hazards. Because
Mm-hmm.
me, honestly, I don't, it weirds me out because, like, when I see alleys, I'm like, huh, even though I'm a big dude, I'm 6'2", about 265, and I can handle myself well, but going down an alley still makes me like very ambivalent. And it's like, it's because it's the unknown and it's not the clarity, it's not as clean, it's not as kept up. But people will say, "Hey, why don't you just go back to a place that you're familiar with?" You're right. I'm I'm not trying to change it into a bad thing or actually just try to beat up on it. What I want to do is see Billings be the full potential that it can be.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this is another pet peeve that I have with Billings is we our whole town is so dark at night. Like I live off of 32nd Street and by Poly area, and if you go past 17th and Poly, there are no streetlights.
Hmm.
It's like if we want to be a vibrant community, a safe community, we need to have streetlights on a main street. It's not like Poly is way out in the middle of nowhere on the west end. It's a main drag in Billings, and there's
So
no
it's,
streetlights.
yeah. As soon as you get past Rocky Mountain University, it's just like, oh,
It's dark. You
kind
would think it was
yeah.
the end of town.
So to me, when I hear this, and this is just the fiscal money that goes through my brain is like, okay, how are we going to be able to support this? How will we raise taxes? Okay, who are we going to hire? How are we going to be able to do it? How many of the things of the bureaucracy that we're going to come across that are whose hands do we have to polish?
Mhm.
Is people actually really trying to see the betterment, or is everybody's hands trying to get greased? That's like that's a conundrum where at least that's where I come across it.
No, 100%. You know, another thing that I've come across from people that have talked to us, with our Access Billings is the crosswalk buttons a lot of times, if you're in a wheelchair or a walker or whatever, you have to go out into the street to press it.
Really?
Mhm.
Why is that?
Because of the angle it's at. You can't get your wheelchair up to it close enough to press it, and so you have to go out into the street to press it.
I never knew that.
There's a few of them in town. It's not all of them, but there's a few of them in town, especially on the West End that are that way, and it's really bad.
Do you think it was just actually piss poor planning?
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of Billings discrepancies when it comes to the ADA, and I will say this, it's not that they do not want to care, it's that they just don't think about it, and I think it's that they, just put things up quickly, especially with, like, the street signs and things like that.
So it's a penny rich, dollar poor approach. But
When if they did it right the first time, they wouldn't have to redo it when people get angry and cause a fuss.
So to give the audience understanding why we get into the small things, when you're thinking about how people get stressed out or what creates the depression or the anxiety, it's not usually just one event, one acute event that actually happened. There is these layering of different concerning problems and barriers to people's lives. Some people are able to continuously move past them. Other people are able to just continuously put barriers in their life. But if you don't feel like, hey, I'm not wanted because I'm X, Y, and Z, and then all of a sudden having this reminder, which is not a reminder to you, it is a reminder to me saying, I can't get to this place because I'm wheelchair bound. The snow is an issue. This is an issue. And this is why I'm really trying to get into the weeds of this so that when Mitch is talking about this, it's something for us to really consider, not just even in people disabled, but all the little stuff in our life that creates all these barriers and makes it an issue for us to be able to connect to other people. Sorry,
Yeah,
I just wanted to be able to jump in there and give a little feedback of why we're doing this.
of course. And one thing that I will say too. So, um, when we're talking about the little things boiling up, there was one day, and I can't remember where I was going throughout the day, but I had multiple things that just boiled up, and I probably went to the doctor or something like that because that always gets on my nerves.
Hmm.
Um, I just don't like going to the doctor. But I ended my day going to one of our establishments in town, and again, I can't remember where it was. Oh, I do remember it was when Kava Roots was just opening up, and they weren't 100% open. It was like a soft open, so they didn't have all their seating out or anything like that. It was a very, very soft open. But during that soft open, they didn't have any lower tables. It was all high tops. And so I went there with Leif, and it was a chamber event, I believe. And he came later than me, and I was already there knowing there was no high tops or no low tops, excuse me. And he got there and could tell I was irritated. And it wasn't necessarily just that one thing, but it was the culmination of the whole day. And again, I don't remember exactly what happened throughout the day that made me irritated because that was coming up on almost a year ago now, if not longer. But I do remember that that was the culminating end of it. And so you're exactly right. What tips us off and makes us irritated might look like a small thing, like the access in the crosswalk or whatever it is. But it might be the final thing at the end of the day that's been like, this is what ticks us off.
Like, this is something that this is something I've been lucky enough to talk about in one of my groups is the surroundings of a situation. For instance, you're like, hey, is this Mitch friendly? Do I have to keep telling people is this Mitch friendly? Are they getting annoyed with me by asking this? Is this if they say no, then why the fuck did they even ask me? And it's the other thing is like, well, if we're in a good mood that day, man, honestly, I'm super glad that they thought about me. But yep, I can't actually make it to this event. But if it's a day that it's just been kicking me in the teeth, it's like, are you mocking me? And and we don't realize that these little barriers. And to me, like I'm a very able body. And I'll go, they'll be like, okay, well, would you want to come out to a Christmas party? I'm like, no, too many people. You wanna go to a family thing? No, don't wanna do that. I'll be there for a little bit and I'll leave. I'm like, "Well, why is Will leaving?" Just, he doesn't want to. He can't do it anymore. What's wrong with him? And they don't realize that, like, there's these underlying stuck points in our life that create these unfortunate narratives that make it difficult for us to be able to connect to people.
Right. Well, and the other thing that sucks for the disabled community that are in wheelchairs, especially, there are very, 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 very few houses that are made for disabled people. And so when you're talking about wanting to create those friendships, wanting to, maybe have relationships beyond friendships, have a girlfriend or boyfriend, um, that is very difficult because more than likely you can't get into the other person's house. You can't get into your friend's house for a party. So then what are you doing? You're having to go to a bar, you're having to go to a restaurant, you're having to go to a coffee shop, which is expensive when you're having to do that with all the friends that you want to hang out with. So you do end up kind of holding yourself in your house that you know is accessible, or you invite them over to your house all the time, which is fine. But if you're not somebody that wants to host all the time either, that's hard. So it's just tough.
So honestly, I was thinking about this before we jumped on this call, and I'm like, man, being friends with Mitch, how would this actually look like? And it sounds so odd. It sounds so fucked up to say it like that, but it's like, well, invite him over to the house. I have 3 steps. Actually, no, I have 5 steps. And then you have the little walkway up. What about the garage? Well, there's 3 large steps. Yep, and it's like, well, then you can only hang out with him during the nice days, and that's it's like in the yard. Well, it's it's like, what happens if it's buggy? What happens if it's rainy? And it's like,
It's
you
tough.
know, I was just trying to put myself in the shoes of like, what does that look like? Well, you can go to like a place like this, and I was thinking about Bar MT, the place that I like to haunt. I'm like, all those chairs are pretty high up there.
Yeah,
And
I think
then
they might have 1 or 2 low tables.
and then those are the ones that are in the back that have the little lip that you have to actually go over.
Yeah, I've only been in there once, so I can't say that for sure. But yeah, sounds right.
I'm throwing this out there is because it's like these things that we don't think about, and they're the compounding layers of what actually impacts our mental health.
Oh, 100%. I mean, thankfully, things for me like that do not happen every day because it would affect my mental health. But you also learn as somebody with a disability where you can go and you get comfortable in your routine. So I go places where I can go and I know I can go, and so that I don't feel that um very often. Now there are times like I went into Fenway's about a year ago. And they at the time, I don't know if they do now. Um they didn't have low top seating where I could get to it. They had low top seating up 3 or 4 steps, which don't understand that. But whatever. Um and then they had it outside, but it was also like November and cold and I wasn't going to sit outside. And so I do occasionally if I'm feeling good and want to potentially risk not being able to go to a place, but um for the most part I just stay where I know I can go. And I think that's a lot of disabled people. I think they know where they can go, know where they feel safe, and that's where they go, or they stay home. I know quite a few disabled people that say we don't go out much, and that's a sad reality that we live in Billings too.
And it's not even just Billings, it's honestly, it's across the country.
Mhm.
And now think about trying to get around when you know you're wheelchair bound, say in New York City. And you're like, okay, if you don't have one of those big spots for vans, think about how hard it would be. Then you're parking a mile away from to get to a place, and you're crowded, and it is, n- even though a lot of the stuff is accessible for wheelchair people, but realistically, is it ideal for people?
Right, right. No, 100%. I will say for bigger cities, one that is well, 2 that are very handicap friendly, minus the hills in one of them. But, Salt Lake is very handicap accessible, um, across the board. It's clean, super flat, handicap accessible. And then if you take away the hills, Seattle is very handicap accessible. But again, you have to take away the hills. That's a game changer.
Yeah, you need like one of those like super industrial brakes on your wheelchairs.
Oh, yeah, yeah, the hills are like that. Yeah, no.
I was waiting for you to say San Francisco, and I was like, "Yeah, that's just all hills."
Yeah, no, no, I've never been to San Francisco, but Seattle, if you take away the hills, is very handicap accessible.
Well, Mitch, I would like to ask you, do you have any, words for people for I don't know, not dealing would not be the right word, about actually helping individuals with being wheelchair bound or promoting accessibility, or do you have anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, so I kinda live by a mantra, and this is probably why I don't get down too often. I read a book when I was a kid, it was titled No Excuses, and by Kyle Maynard, and he's a man now who was born without arms and legs, and he played football, wrestled, as a kid, and then now has climbed, like, Mount Kilimanjaro, Mount McKinley, all the different mountains in the world, and just does absolutely amazing things. And so I have always kinda had that no excuses mantra. Um, Life dealt me a terrible hand, and I can't change that, and so I'm gonna live with no excuses and live my life to the fullest and try to change what I can, and, just don't have any excuses for myself. And so that would be my advice to others is it's easy to come up with excuses of why not to do this, why not to do that, why not to try this, but if you do that, your life is just going to be kinda hard and, to be honest, pretty sucky. And so do the hard things every once in a while. You don't need to all the time because obviously I don't like doing hard things all the time, but, your life will be better and just don't give yourself excuses.
I appreciate that. And Mitch, thank you for your time, man. And thank you for sharing your story. And I really hope that this message is able to resonate with somebody or multiple people, but it's not just about the one time, it's actually about how it continuously impacts us.
Yes. Yes, thank you so much, Will, for having me on. It's been a great time.